Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup, the show where we round up all of the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. Got a lot of stuff to get through today, so let's just jump right into it. First up, Aquaman 2 drama and Justice League recasting? Let's get into it. It's coming from Variety. Embarrassing documents from the Johnny Depp Amber Heard defamation trial surfaced on Reddit, creating a new headache for the studio behind the film. Depp fans paid the court fees for the release of documents from Heard's therapist, Dr. Dawn Hughes. The raw notes scribbled on a legal pad were part of last year's high-profile trial in which Depp largely prevailed. They describe a hostile Aquaman set where an allegedly intoxicated Jason Momoa, dressed like Depp, and pushed to have Heard booted from the role of aquatic superhero Mera. Jason said he wanted me fired, the notes say. Jason drunk, late on set, dressing like Johnny has all the rings too. A rep for Momoa declined to comment, but a DC spokesperson pushed back on Heard's characterization, saying Jason Momoa conducted himself in a professional manner at all times on the set of Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. Jason works his ass off, likes to have a beer once in a while, like everyone, but doesn't show up drunk to set, says an insider who was on the London set in 2021, adding that the two stars got along when they got along and were seen together. And he isn't dressing like Johnny Depp, he always dressed in that bohemian style. Heard declined comment, but a source close to the actress confirmed that the notes refer to the Aquaman 2 set. The therapy session also painted a picture of Heard feeling unsupported by the film's director, James Wan, treated like a pariah because of her high-profile legal battle with her ex-husband. He raised his voice at me. I can't even post about Aquaman. Made it like it was my fault. I said I'm sorry. Say Hughes notes in reference to Wan. Nobody could take selfies with me on set given blackout. Wan declined comment. The DC spokesperson says James is known for treating members of his cast and crew with the utmost respect for fostering a positive, collaborative environment on set. The Aquaman films were no exception. And yet Heard was nearly fired. Okay, so first of all, let's just talk about that. So it seems like Amber Heard told her therapist, oops, this is the wrong thing. Okay, it seems like Amber Heard told her therapist that she was basically being abused on set. Jason Momoa was coming in and mocking her, dressing up like Johnny Depp. You know, she felt like James Wan was also not very supportive of her. And honestly, this is one of those situations where it almost feels a little weird just to even comment on, because it's not like Amber Heard came out with this story. This was just something that was told to her psychologist or therapist, and her therapist's notes were leaked. So, honestly, I would argue that gives it a little bit more credibility, because she wouldn't really have had any reason to lie, because this information was never going to get out anyways. So I'm inclined to believe that she, at the very least, does genuinely feel this way. But again, should there be consequences to this? Probably not. I don't think that this is so bad of a thing that that Jason Momoa should be kept from being, we'll get to later, Lobo, or even were to come back as Aquaman. I don't know that this behavior is really that bad at the end of the day. James Wan treating her coldly. Honestly, I don't even think that that's all that unreasonable. Mostly just because, during that defamation trial, I'm sure things were awkward, and I'm sure people were acting weird around you. I don't know that any of this is that bad that Jason Momoa or James Wan should face any repercussions. If Jason Momoa did those things, I think that does make him an asshole. But although I don't know, honestly, I'm not sure. I'm not a human resources manager. The Jason Momoa thing is probably a little much. But yeah, again, especially since she didn't come out and make these claims herself, I don't know that he should end up facing any he should be reprimanded in some way. That would seem to be going a little far to me. But even besides that, if we continue reading here, It says, and yet Heard was nearly fired. Sources on both sides tell Variety. The studio and Wan decided to drop the actress from the sequel due to her lack of chemistry with Momoa and sent a letter to her attorney, Carl Austin, informing him of its decision. Those sources underscore that the move to bounce Heard was unrelated to Depp and took place before he filed suit against the actress in 2019. Ultimately, the studio never pulled the trigger on firing Heard because her former boyfriend, Elon Musk, had one of his litigators send a scorched earth letter to Warner Brothers, threatening to burn the house down if the actress wasn't brought back for a sequel, says a source familiar with the behind-the-scenes battle. Warner Brothers caved and moved forward with Heard. Musk did not respond to and I didn't end up getting the I didn't end up getting the last bit of it, but it says that Musk did not respond to a request for comment. That's pretty crazy. So Elon Musk, ultimate simp or good boyfriend, decided to basically threaten to sue Warner Brothers if Heard was fired, which I don't even know exactly what that would have looked like. They probably wouldn't have been breaking any contracts, but I guess they just didn't want to risk going into a legal battle with Elon Musk. So that's funny. Because of Elon Musk, we're getting Amber Heard back in Aquaman 2. So that's just a wacky situation. So it's kind of interesting. I feel like a lot of manosphere or I feel like there's like a sphere of people on the internet that are that really dislike Amber Heard for the Johnny Depp drama, that are also a fan of Elon Musk. I feel like in a Venn diagram, there are a lot of people overlapping. So I'm just kind of curious to see what those people's thoughts are to know that Elon Musk saved Amber Heard's, maybe not her career, but her job in that instance. So I don't know. I want to know if there was any inner conflictions in those people. But either way, that's this drama on the Aquaman 2 set. I don't necessarily think that, like I said before, I don't know that it should lead to consequences of Jason Momoa being fired, or James Wan for that matter, especially since Amber Heard didn't come out with this as an accusation herself. So there's that. All right, next up, in that same article, they also commented on recastings and whatnot, so let's get into that. None of the stars cast by Zack Snyder for 2016's Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice and 2017's Justice League, including Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, Ezra Miller, and Momoa, will reprise their roles in the new DC universe in character. Momoa may return, just not as Aquaman. Sources say the actor has engaged in talks to play Lobo, either in the 2025 reboot Superman Legacy, written and directed by Gunn, or in a standalone film. So there we have Variety confirming that. So we already knew that Henry Cavill wasn't going to come back. We pretty much knew that Ben Affleck wouldn't come back. But there was questions surrounding Gal Gadot and Ezra Miller and Jason Momoa as Aquaman. Gal Gadot really muddied the waters when she directly said that James Gunn directly told her that they were going to do more. Ezra Miller was never confirmed nor denied. Neither was Jason Momoa. So it seems here that Variety is now reporting that none of them are coming back. And I think this is a good thing at the end of the day. I think if you're doing a DCU, you at the very least have to recast your core trinity, right? Superman, Batman, and Wonder Woman. And I would also extend that to characters like The Flash and Aquaman. Is it confusing that they're bringing back John Cena as Peacemaker and Viola Davis as Amanda Waller? Yeah, it is kind of confusing. But I think that the main important thing is recasting your Superman, recasting your Batman, and recasting your Wonder Woman. And I do think that will send the clear message that this is a new universe, this is a new thing. And to be honest, I really did not like Gal Gadot in this role at all. I don't think she's a good actress. I'm sorry. It's nothing against her personally. She seems like a nice lady. She's just not a good actress. So I am especially excited that we're hopefully going to get someone who can act to play Wonder Woman. And honestly, they obviously changed the role of Aquaman in Justice League to more match Jason Momoa's energy. But I never thought that he was like a great pick for Aquaman either, at least when you're thinking about like the comic book Aquaman. Jason Momoa as Lobo seems perfect. That is like perfect casting. Like Lobo literally just looks like Jason Momoa. If Jason Momoa fell into the Joker acid bath. But yeah, so if Jason Momoa were to come back as Lobo, I'd be totally cool with that. It says that he might come back in Superman Legacy. That would be interesting because I'm like, I don't know that much about Lobo, but I think he is like as strong as Superman, or at the very least close. So I wonder if he might end up being the villain of Superman Legacy. That might be interesting. But yeah, overall, excited about the recasting. All right, next story. Disney looks like they might be buying EA. Let's get into it. It's coming from Bloomberg. Iger's deputies are pushing him to consider a bolder transformation of Disney from gaming licensee to gaming giant through, say, an acquisition of Electronic Arts. But as with anything else, he's been non-committal. So this was like an overall piece on Bob Iger and his current reign at Disney and how it's kind of troubled and whatnot. And so this is where the story is coming from. Basically, what that article is saying is that there has been a decision to buy EA or any big video game publisher or anything like that. There are just people within Disney that think it would be a good idea. So at the end of the day, it's kind of not that big of a story because we have no word if Disney actually has any intention of buying EA. And it's actually unclear when you read that whether or not what the article is saying. Like it's unclear if they are saying that the deputies want Bob Iger to buy EA specifically, or if the article writer is just providing EA as an example of a studio that they could buy. But honestly, I don't really like acquisitions like this, to be honest. It's like, we don't need to further like monopolize media and art and whatnot. Although I will say, I guess I would rather Disney buy EA than say like Microsoft and stave off Microsoft's acquisitions because they're going crazy buying Activision and Bethesda, which I'm not a huge fan of that. I guess I'd rather a company outside of gaming get into gaming by buying a company like EA. Like I'd rather have that than another gaming company just continue consolidating. So I don't know. We'll see though. I actually like Disney's approach right now. I like that they don't even have a contract with EA anymore for Star Wars. So like EA gets to make some Star Wars games like the Star Wars Jedi games and Battlefront, but then Ubisoft's also making a Star Wars game. I think the Detroit Become Human developers, I don't know what their name is. They're making a Star Wars game. Like on the Marvel side of things, you have Insomniac making a Star Wars game, but then Square Enix unfortunately made some Star Wars games. Although Guardians of the Galaxy game was good, but Marvel's Avengers was not. But then you also have like another random studio. I think a new studio is making they never made a game before. They're making a Captain America and Black Panther game. You have another studio making an Iron Man game. Like I like that they just make deals with different studios. I wonder if they were to buy EA, would all of those deals stop and then EA is the only one making Marvel and Star Wars games? That would kind of suck. So I guess from that front, I would be scared about an acquisition like this. But I don't know. We'll see. It's not even really confirmed at this point. So we'll just have to keep our eyes out. All right. Daredevil has just been scrapped and rebooted. So let's get into it. Fewer than half of the series' 18 episodes had been shot, but it was enough for Marvel executives, including Chief Kevin Feige, to review the footage and come away with a clear-eyed assessment. The show wasn't working. So in late September, Marvel quietly let go head writer Chris Ord and Matt Corman and also released the directors for the remainder of the season as part of a significant creative reboot of the series. The show is now on the hunt for new writers and directors for the project. Sources say that Corman and Ord crafted a legal procedural that did not resemble the Netflix version, known for its action and violence. Cox didn't even show up in costume until the 4th episode. Marvel plans to keep some scenes and episodes, though other serialized elements will be injected, with Corman and Ord becoming executive producers on the 2-season series. So, yeah, this is interesting. I am a little conflicted on this because at the end of the day, if the season was just straight up bad, like if it was just poorly made as it was shaping up, then yeah, I mean, I'd rather them scrap it and restart than give us a mid to bad Daredevil Disney Plus show. Like that is a better alternative, you know. So I guess my only thing is that when I look at the fact that they just made a legal procedural and that Daredevil doesn't show up in costume for the first 4 episodes, I don't necessarily hate that. Like, that's not the worst thing in the world to me, you know? I don't necessarily hate that it wasn't as action focused and it wasn't as violent. Like, as long as it was good, like, I'd still be open to it. So I hope it's not the case that the show was bad, or what I'm saying is that I hope it's not the case that the show was good, but it just wasn't like the Netflix version that they ended up scrapping it. Because if it was a good legal procedural, I would be okay with that. But my guess is that it's just straight up bad. I don't think they would just cancel it because it's not like the Netflix version. So well, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, we are not getting the show. I know they wanted to get the show out, I think, by like late 2024. There's no way in hell that's happening. Now we're not getting this thing by maybe late 2025, if not 2026. So yeah, I don't like thinking about time passing, so we're just gonna move on. So within this Daredevil situation, we also got, in our next topic, we got an overall MCU TV overhaul. So let's get into this. The company eschewed the traditional TV making model. It didn't commission pilots, but instead shot entire 150 million plus seasons of TV on the fly. It didn't hire showrunners, but instead depended on film executives to run its series. And as Marvel does for its movies, it relied on post-production and reshoots to fix what wasn't working. Daredevil is far from the first Marvel series to undergo drastic behind-the-scenes changes. Those who work with Marvel on the TV side have complained of a lack of central vision that has, according to sources, begun to afflict the studio's shows with creative differences and tension. So let's just take a pause here. They didn't commission pilots. That is insane. They shot or they didn't hire showrunners. What? That's insane. Film executives were running their television shows. And much like their movies, it also says here that they were just like relying on post-production and reshoots to fix what wasn't working, which, by the way, has been hurting the movies as well. So this is all just insanity. But anyways, TV is a writer-driven medium, says one insider familiar with the Marvel process. Marvel is a Marvel-driven medium. Even though the company does not have a writer's first approach to TV, directors could feel shortchanged as well. The whole fix it and post attitude makes it feel like a director doesn't matter sometimes, says one person familiar with the process. As its shows ramped up during the pandemic, Marvel stepped outside its usual staffing approach and brought in outside execs after years of internally promoting creatives who had been sufficiently trained in the Marvel method. This change was felt most severely on Secret Invasion. Kyle Bradstreet had been working on the scripts for Secret Invasion for about a year when he was fired after Marvel decided on a different direction. Enter new writer Brian Tucker and Ali Salim were on board as directors and to help crack the story. Details are murky, but what happened next in the summer of 2022 debilitated the production as factions became entrenched and leaders vied for supremacy during Secret Invasion's pre-production in London. It was weeks of people not getting along, and it erupted, says an insider. The company dispatched Jonathan Schwartz, a senior executive and member of Marvel's creative steering committee known as the Parliament, to get Secret Invasion back on track when it was falling behind schedule and on the verge of losing some actors because of other commitments. By early September, a good portion of the Invasion team had been replaced, with new line producers, unit production managers, and assistant directors. And Basuja, who was supposed to direct 3 episodes, left the show because of new scheduling conflicts. The Marvel executive overseeing the show, Chris Gary, was reassigned. As it moves forward, Marvel is... Okay, so we'll get back to moving forward, but apparently Secret Invasion is where it all just broke down. And when you read about that, that sounds insane. People coming and going, new executives being brought in, writers being replaced, and it's just like, yeah, of course these shows have felt disjointed. Like when I look at something like Miss Marvel, the way that it just completely changes into a different show halfway through. And I liked Miss Marvel. I think Iman Vellani is great. I think she's the best casting in the MCU since Robert Downey Jr. as Iron Man. I liked Miss Marvel. There's no doubt that show felt disjointed. And now we're kind of seeing why a lot of these shows feel this way. So let's get into what they're going to do to change it. As it moves forward, Marvel is making concrete changes in how it makes TV. It now has plans to hire showrunners. Whoop-de-doo. That's genius right there. The studio also plans on having full-time TV execs rather than having executives straddle between television and film. Showrunners will write pilots and show Bibles. Wow, that's a unique idea right there. The days of Marvel shooting an entire series, then looking at what's working and what's not, are done. The studio plans on leaning into the idea of multi-season serialized TV, stepping away from the limited series format that has defined it. Marvel wants to create shows that run several seasons, where characters can take time to develop relationships with the audience rather than feeling as if they are there as a setup for a big crossover event. So yeah, there are a couple other interesting aspects about that. So obviously they're starting to hire showrunners, thankfully, I guess, because that's the weird thing, right? Because even if you're making the shows as if they were movies, honestly, that might not necessarily be the worst thing in the world. The problem is that they apparently didn't have a showrunner. Like, movies have directors, where they are like the central vision guiding the thing. The fact that you didn't think you needed that for a show is insane. But anyways, so now they're having showrunners, and they're just treating it more like a TV show where they're going to start filming pilots and then evaluating what's working and what's not working. The showrunner is going to have a show Bible, right? Which, if you don't know what that is, those are basically like rules and the general place where the show is going, what each episode has to cover for the directors of each individual episodes. So yeah, I mean that's all good. That's all good and great. The other interesting thing that they mentioned was that they were going to hire full-time TV execs instead of having film execs straddle between film and television. And I wonder if that means that these TV shows are going to start crossing over into the movies less and less. Because we're going to get into it later, where I think we're about to see like the first really big failure as far as crossing over TV into movies. Because I don't think it's been super successful so far. Like, I think the big major success is what was Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, where you had WandaVision, came out, it was successful, and then people were excited to watch Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness because Wanda was there, and everybody really liked Wanda. They wanted to see where that story was coming from, and even though some people thought that the way it connected to WandaVision was like not faithful to Wanda's character, I personally thought it was. Bitch took over a town and tortured a town full of people. You're telling me that she wouldn't kill people? She took over a town for the thought of her children. You're telling me that she would not kill in order to grab actual children? Y'all are crazy. Doctor Strange the Multiverse of Madness was consistent with WandaVision. I don't care if Sam Raimi never watched WandaVision. But anyways, that was still a financial success. We're about to get into the Marvels in a later story that points to that not being a financial success. So anyways, I wonder if them having different executives I'm sure these shows are still going to be in the MCU, but I wonder if they're not going to focus so much on crossing them over. Not that they necessarily have been too much, but you also have a show like Loki, which started setting up Kang, which then led into like Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, and there's like zero excitement about Kang and the multiverse and all of that. So I don't know. This is just a thought that I'm putting out there. But even still, when you get to the end of that phrase there, it does say that they want these shows to just feel like shows at the end of the day, right? They don't want it to just feel like content that is there to set up a crossover. So I don't know. Listen, is it worrying that it took them this long to realize that they should probably hire showrunners? Absolutely. Is it worrying that they didn't realize Daredevil was going to work after just reading the scripts? Yeah, it is. But at the end of the day, progress is progress, and if now that they realize it, they can produce better content, then I'll be for it. So let me know what you think about. Let me know what you think about that in the comments down below, and let's get into the next story. Sasha Baron Cohen looks like he's going to be an Ironheart. Let's look at this excerpt here. So this is from the U.S. copyright website. I guess we'll read the description of the show. Marvel Studios presents Ironheart, in which charming teenage super genius Riri Williams returns from MIT to her hometown of Chicago in her iron suit and begins to unravel threads that bring danger and adventure right to her doorstep. So that's what Ironheart is going to be about. But if you look at the bottom right, it says here that Sasha Baron Cohen is going to be playing a mystery man. So it's been rumored for a long time that Sasha Baron Cohen would be playing Mephisto. And Mephisto, in general, has been rumored for a long time to be popping up in every MCU project. And people might be thinking, but why would Mephisto be in an Ironheart show? That's what sounds weird. Well, the premise of Ironheart is actually going to be, or I guess one of the themes of it is going to be technology versus magic. So in that sense, Mephisto does seem like a character that could make sense. So I don't know. Again, there's no real proof other than Sasha Baron Cohen will in fact be in the show, and it has been rumored in the past that Sasha Baron Cohen was going to play Mephisto. He looks like a Mephisto, so sure, we'll see. All right, next story. We got some FNAF information that should be worrying. Okay, it's come from Comic Book Reporter. One of the reasons, which will be interesting to you guys, why the movie took so long, is that Hollywood sometimes, not always, it makes the mistake when they're adapting a super popular book or a super popular game to start out at the very beginning to make a movie that not only will satisfy the fans of the book or the game, but bring a larger audience. But what became clear through the development process is that the only way to pull this off was to make the movie for fans of Five Nights at Freddy's, and if anyone else came, fine. And this is something that I've actually been talking about for a long time, where I've been really curious as to how this Five Nights at Freddy's movie was going to turn out, because if you're not aware, Five Nights at Freddy's, the game franchise, is an incredibly dense and convoluted, or it has an incredibly dense and convoluted story and lore. There is just whenever these games come out, the main draw of it at this point, I feel like, for fans of the franchise is to investigate it and figure out what the story is. So it is, and I've watched listen, I've gone down YouTube rabbit holes of trying to follow the Five Nights at Freddy's lore, and it is dumb, it is stupid, it is confusing, and this I've been saying that this movie has the potential to just completely alienate general audiences. And I got especially worried about that, considering the fact that the movie is coming out on Peacock and in theaters on the same day. And any movie that comes out on Peacock and theaters on the same day sucked. Sucks. It's just a general trend that you can follow. And then not only that, let's take a look at when the Five Nights at Freddy's review embargo comes out. According to horror movie insider Critical Overload on X, formerly Twitter, reviews for Five Nights at Freddy's will be released on Friday, October 27th. By the way, the movie comes out on October 26th. Well, technically it comes out on October 27th, but you know that when a movie comes out on a Friday, it'll release in theaters on the Thursday before. Discussing films, Jacob Fisher confirmed with information that this was in fact the exact time and date the review embargo was up. So you don't even have to listen to what I have to say saying that this movie has the potential to alienate general audiences. Blumhouse they have no faith in this movie because if a studio is really confident in a movie, then they will lift the review embargo like a couple weeks ahead of time. If a studio is not feeling comfortable, if they're not confident in their movie, then they'll release the review embargo like 2 or 3 days. I can't remember the last time I saw a studio put their review embargo up after the movie releases. I'm sorry, but this movie's probably not going to be very good. And it's sad. Listen, I've actually been kind of hopeful for the movie because I have a thing where I feel like we should be getting more horror stuff that's made for children, right? Like horror movies that are genuinely creepy and that will genuinely creep a kid out, but not so disturbing to where they're going to get traumatized. So I've been wanting this movie to come out and be good, but I just don't think it will. I mean, maybe it's possible that this ends up being a movie that like hardcore fans of the franchise will at least like be able to identify stuff in and analyze and figure out the lore, and that's obviously fun in its own way. But my guess is that if you're not a fan of the franchise and if that's not something that you're interested in doing and you just want to go in for a good movie, you're probably not going to get something good here. So we'll have to wait and see. I don't know. Hope maybe it's going to end up being a Best Picture contender. I don't know. Don't listen to me. You know what I mean? All right. Next story. Looks like we're going to get a Halloween cinematic universe because that's what everybody's been asking for, apparently. After a heated bidding war, Miramax has scored the television rights to the hugely popular Halloween franchise. The new Halloween series is envisioned to potentially launch a cinematic universe spanning film and television. I just don't even know. Like, there's not even enough stuff in Halloween to make a cinematic universe. Like, what is Blood waffling about? Unless they end up going in the direction of like Halloween 3 Season of the Witch, to where Michael Myers wasn't even in that movie and it was like sort of setting up more like mysticism and whatever and supernatural elements in the Halloween franchise. Like, I just like I don't understand what you would even do in a cinematic universe. Like are we gonna get a young Michael Myers streaming series, or I don't even know. So I guess one interesting thing that could come out of this is Halloween content that doesn't have anything to do with Michael Myers. But then at that point, it's like, how does that even identify with Halloween? Like, you're just using the name for branding at that point. But I mean, I guess if we get content that doesn't have to do with Michael Myers and it's just original, I guess that could be cool. So I don't know. Nobody was asking for this, but it's happening anyways. So we're being threatened with it, and we gotta deal with what we get, don't we? All right, next story. The Marvel's opening weekend box office is looking disastrous. So Box Office Pro is predicting an opening weekend range of $50 to $75 million and a domestic total range of $121 million to $189 million. So if you don't really pay attention to box office, you might be like, oh, well, that's not too bad. Well, let's look at the first Captain Marvel opening weekend box office. The first Captain Marvel made $153 million, and I should have written it here. I'm stupid. It made around $400 million domestically. So this movie is looking to potentially making less than half of the box office of the first Captain Marvel. So what's going on here? I mean, I think first of all, you have to look at the fact that the first Captain Marvel was not very good and was to a certain extent being carried by the hype of Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. Now, at the same time, though, a movie doesn't make $1 billion just because it was just because of hype from other movies. Like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Ant-Man and the Wasp, not Quantumania, not the first one, the second one, Ant-Man and the Wasp. That movie also came out in between Infinity War and Endgame. That movie did not make $1 billion. So people did enjoy the first Captain Marvel because they went back and watched it multiple times. I think that you have to look at just the state of the MCU here. Like, people being continually disappointed with mediocre movie after mediocre movie after mediocre movie, and mediocre Disney Plus show after mediocre Disney Plus show after mediocre Disney Plus show. Like, I know a lot of people, and myself included, we're kind of being overwhelmed and underwhelmed at the same time. I can't say I'm all that surprised that The Marvels is kind of the breaking point where people are just like, I'm not interested in this. So we'll see. Like, we just got Guardians, which was great. But I also think that Guardians was a movie that and also another factor here is the trailers. The trailers for The Marvels have not been good. Well, I've actually liked the trailers. I think they look like a lot of fun, but it's not a trailer that somebody who's jaded by the MCU is going to look at and be like, oh, I got to see that now. I think when you look at something like Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, that movie, the trailers for that movie was really great. It promised this emotional story, a wrapping up of the Guardians trilogy. And it when you just watch that trailer and you're like, oh, this looks like a movie. This looks like an emotional journey that I can go on. When you watch the trailer for the Marvels, it doesn't look like that. It just looks like a generic Marvel movie, which I think looks fun. I love Aman Vellani as Kamala Khan. I even like Monica Rambeau. I'm not a huge fan of Captain Marvel, to be fair, but again, the first movie made $1 billion. There are people that exist that enjoyed that movie. you can't deny that. So yeah, I think it's a confluence of people being jaded by the MCU and the trailers not being very good. And I simply can't say that I'm surprised that this is the breaking point for a lot of people. So hopefully it's great. At this point, like, I don't think it's Jover for the MCU, but they need to pick up the pace. I think that, Loki, I actually haven't seen Loki yet, season 2. I think the first 2 episodes are out. People seem to enjoy that. So if Loki is good, and if The Marvels is good, and if Captain America Brave New World is good, and if Deadpool 3 is good, I still think that the MCU can crawl out of the pit that they're in. But man, if Loki falls off in like the last couple episodes, if the Marvel comes out and is terrible, if we get a Captain America Brave New World that's mid, if Deadpool 3 is underwhelming, then it very well could be Jover for Marvel. So we'll have to wait and see how that all plays out. All right. Next up, we have an update on the SAG strike, and it is not looking good. So they met, and then this is talking about how the meeting went. One issue of contention is a SAG-AFTRA demand for a share of streaming revenue delivered as a bonus to cast members. The AMPTP said the proposal will cost more than $800 million per year, which would create an untenable economic burden. SAG-AFTRA countered that the AMPTP had overstated the cost by 60% and accused the studios of bully tactics. The union also said studios refused to protect performers from being replaced by AI, while the AMPTP said it had promised to obtain actors' consent before using any digital replicas of their likenesses. On issues such as general wage increases and residuals for high-budget streaming shows, the AMPTP said it had offered the same terms that were ratified by the WGA and the Directors Guild of America, but that SAG-AFTRA rejected them. So, yeah, it really does seem like the SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP are not willing to budge on these respective issues. It seems like they're just not able to come to an agreement on pay, and it seems like they're not able to come to an agreement on AI. And I have to say, I feel like I kind of come down. Here's where I come down. As far as the pay is concerned, I actually don't know if I'm that big of a fan of what the actors are asking for. Like, it seems like they're just asking for just revenue from streaming services and not pay for work that's being done. So, like, I would be all in favor of, obviously raising the actors' base pay for when they're going to perform in something, because that it seemed, just from listening to all the actors, it seems like it's just not livable. It's almost not just feasible to live on the current pay that exists. Raise that base pay and integrate, if not residuals, just some kind of reward system for if your show is successful, right? So if you make a great show and it becomes successful, I think that because the problem is that with the advent of streaming, it's not the same as when a show would make money off of advertising dollars. Like, due to streaming, residuals have not really been a thing as of late. Although, honestly, that could change if ad-based services start becoming a thing again, or becoming a more prominent thing. So, that's kind of a complicated issue. But I will say it does seem a little egregious for SAG to be asking for, like, just pay based off of how many subscribers there are. Like, that seems like a weird avenue to go on. So, I guess I can kind of see the AMPTP's point on that. But when it comes to AI, the AMPTP is literally wanting to do a thing where, like, an actor will just they'll get paid for like a day's work, and then they'll have their face scanned, and they're just able to be used for whatever reason, right? Right, and this is stuff for like background actors and stuff, to where they'll just be able to put AI background characters and background actors, and no, absolutely not. That is an existential attack on acting as as an enterprise, as a profession. It's like, of course not. Of course the SAG-AFTRA is not gonna agree to that. So, and by the way, and I really do I always need to say this, as a viewer, I don't want AI to have a prominent role in art. It's not what I am interested in when consuming art, you know? Like, when I'm consuming art, I don't, like, even if it is a background actor performance, I want to see that person, that human's performance. When I'm consuming art, I'm not trying to consume what a computer did artistically. I want to consume something that a human did artistically. So, just even as a viewer, I just completely, just like from a base human instinct, I just reject the idea of replacing background actors, especially like main actors, with AI. That's just a no-go for me. So yeah, I think that SAG could probably like not demand as much on the pay front, or at the very least work out another solution because the thing is that I support pay being raised on a base scale and being raised if the performer does good, because I think that benefits both sides, right? That the actor is incentivized to perform as best as they can so that their show is as successful as possible, and that's good for the studios, and then the studio pays them more money, and that's good for the actor. So that's sort of the relationship that I feel like should be there. I don't necessarily think that you should just be paid based off of the number of subscribers, because a streaming service has a lot of subscribers, that doesn't mean that all of those subscribers are going to watch your show. So yeah, I don't know, man. I thought that the actor strike was going to end shortly after the writer strike ended, but it really does seem like this thing is going to get pushed, possibly into 2024. So yeah, along with just the fact that Daredevil Born Again is resetting its production, it seems like this thing wouldn't have let it go into production anytime soon anyways. So, oh boy, we'll have to wait and see how that goes out. And yeah, those are all the news stories that we have for the day. Next, let's get into what I've been watching. So, I watched episode 3 of Gen V, currently editing my reaction. Again, I mentioned that I haven't watched any of the episodes of Loki. I also haven't seen the episodes 4 and 5 of The Boys, and I also haven't seen the season finale of Ahsoka. These reaction videos are really slowing me down in my viewing experiences, but I want to make them work. I like doing them. I think it's good content. I want to make it work. I might also just accept that I'm gonna be behind, and I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. So we'll see what I do with all that. All right, but yeah, episode 3 of The Boys, I thought it was really great. I actually thought this episode was like not depressing. The characters ended in a more hopeful place, so that's good. Like the characters were all friends by the end, and I was like, oh, that's cute. I like that. So yeah, I don't know. I thought it was a really cute episode. And yeah, I this episode really sort of solidified the Scooby-Doo comparison that I had found. The team feels like the Scooby Gang in a sense. So I'm really excited to see them, discover the mystery of the school and hopefully do some good, unlike their parents and the adults in their lives. So yeah, Gen V is really good so far. Highly recommend it. I also watched Orel. So this is a show that I came across on YouTube, and I watched it all for free on YouTube. It's probably on it's an old Adult Swim show. It's probably on Max, I want to say, but the episodes are also just on YouTube. So if you don't have a YouTube subscription, you can just watch it there. But if you want to support the show, even though it's been long canceled, this is like a show from 2005, I think. So honestly, don't feel guilty. Just watch it on YouTube if you want. But anyways, Orel is a show about this young kid named Orel, and he is like a 12-year-old kid in a very religious fictional town called Morrilton. And it is an adult comedy that satirizes Christianity in every episode. Like it'll like tackle different topics every episode. And this is one of the best shows that I've ever seen. I came across it on YouTube. It is unironically one of the best shows that I have ever seen. Because when it starts off cute and it starts off funny. And even within the first season, like it definitely gets serious at points. But by the time you get to the third season, it is genuinely some of like the best and most effective and most emotional, and just it is one of the best shows that I've ever seen. And I almost don't want to talk about it too much because I think it's something that you kind of want to experience. But, dude, watch this show. Watch this show. If you've never heard of it, I'd never heard of it either. I guess I'll do a trigger warning. If you're like religious and you get easily offended, then you might get offended by this. If you're offended by like dark humor, it is very dark. The humor gets very dark. And at points it just stops even becoming humorous, and it is just dark. So I will warn you about that. But yeah, man, if you just want to watch a great show about, about just humanity and the darkness and generational trauma that happens in a lot of these like religious communities and religious families, it is phenomenal. Like I was completely caught off guard by how this show ends up. So I didn't react to it, unfortunately. This is just kind of something that I was watching in my spare time, but it is well worth it. So that is going to be it for this episode of Nerdy Movie News Roundup. It is the show where we round up all the latest news in the world of nerdy movies. Let me know what you think about any and all of those topics in the comments down below, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye. 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 Goodbye.